Okay, okay. And I'm just gonna give a little introduction about Maryrose. I know it's a little like formal. Um, so through replication, scale, and perspective, Maryrose Cubarubias Mendoza uses personal touch and common materials to transform the banal via drawing, sculpture, and installation. Creating a visual language inspired by things helps restore parts of spoken language that were often absent or confusing during Mendoza's childhood, since neither her native or non-native languages were fully formed when she immigrated. Mendoza's work is currently exhibited at the Orange County Museum of Art for exhibition Navigating Techniques. She is also shown at the Pacific Asia Museum, Los Angeles Municipal Art Gallery, the Armory Center of the Arts, Plug-In Gallery, Soma Arts, YYZ Artist Outlet, Commonwealth and Council, and many others. Maryrose is a recipient of the 2019 Guggenheim Fellowship, Akola Individual Artist Fellowship, New York Art Matters Fellowship, and she lives and works in Los Angeles County, where she is an associate professor in drawing at Pasadena City College. So yeah, our special visiting artist for the day, Maryrose Mendoza.
Thanks, Champoy. Hi, everybody. Nice to see you, and thanks for being here. So Champoy tells me that you guys are working on a project that's using, I guess, materials as the focus. And I'm getting that this means anything, Champoy, any kind of material. So it could be image material or material in terms of process of making, and also maybe a material in terms of object, right, Champoy? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I think it's kind of varied, but yeah, definitely like a lot of those lines.
Okay, so so I'm going to show you my work, and I'm going to show you a little bit of an evolution of how I work with objects and how I use also materials. So I guess I'll be able to share my screen. Is that right, Champoy?
Yeah, I think I said it. Try to see. You should be able to do it.
Okay. And as I do this, you guys, if you want to just ask me a question, you can always ask me a question if um, if I go too fast, because I'm not going to stay on every slide too long. I'm going to just kind of talk about bodies of work. So starting here with this image, this is from my current show right now that Champoy mentioned at the Orange County Museum of Art, called Navigating Techniques. And I wanted to start here because I just want you to see that I'm using some things that I actually discovered when I was in grad school. So here we have this oversized boat that I made, and also the oversized paper. And then on the wall is a chalkboard that's actually a reduced size chalkboard. And so that's why the scale looks so big, because that chalkboard is actually half the size of an original chalkboard. You guys don't even know what chalkboards are, probably because you guys use the whiteboard. But we used to use chalkboards. Okay. Oops. Okay, so just briefly, I just wanted to share a couple of significant things that happened to me, which is my parents immigrated here from the Philippines when I was really young. So I was like a toddler. This on the left side, this is them immigrating. This is them going to the airplane. And we're up here kind of like yelling and stuff. And I had no idea, because I was like 2.5, and I was like, yeah, see ya. But I had no idea they were leaving. And so what happened is that it just really affected me. I actually got sick, and they had to come back. And then we didn't meet with them again until 1970. So on the right side here, I have a orange beetle. This is a 72. The photograph was done in 72, and my father was really into collecting cars. And a family of 5 in this little beetle. But it was significant because it was part of the time period, the 70s, growing up here since I was little, and just being part of the California landscape and the Los Angeles lifestyle. And then I don't know if you guys are familiar with these things. So I just want you to see some cultural references. Growing up here, I basically, raised by immigrant parents, and they are doing their best. And my mom works at in the daytime, and my father works at night. And then they send us to school, and they're doing their best, and they send us off to eat, with our lunches. And my mom basically is making lunches that don't look and appear like my friends' lunches. Her lunches are spam and liverwurst and potted meat, and my friends' lunches have, they just look like amazing sandwiches. But my mom was doing her best, and she, we'd have like hot dogs coming out of the bun, and I mean, not a bun, but actually white bread. And it was a little bit of an embarrassment for me, to be like not really quite like American enough. And but we assimilated, and so we basically assimilated, and just that's what we were taught. At least the Filipinos at that time, when we immigrated, is just assimilate, and and we did that. And it wasn't until, I mean, I've always felt like I was just, I wasn't really thinking about my identity so much in terms of like trying to seek it out during those times. Just wanted to be a good old American. When I went to grad school, I had some influences, and they were William James on the left, who's a philosopher and psychologist, and then Bell Hooks in the center, and they were real instrumental in their ideas. I related to what they were saying. I related to what William James was saying about psychology and how people are affected by their environment, and I was relating to how Bell Hooks was talking about racism, class, and social structure. On the right is Bulasan. This is Carlos Bulasan, and he wasn't someone I knew about when I was in grad school. He's more of a current influence to me now. Bottom left there is Klaus Oldenburg with his Beetle, which I love love that car, and then there's a ice cream cone that he made on the top there, and then we see Andy Warhol's Brillo boxes, which I think when I first saw them when I was younger, was kind of always just kind of like perplexed by them. I never knew how much I would be connected to it now. And on that right side, bottom, real faint drawing of Agnes Martin. Actually, it's a painting by Agnes Martin, minimalist artist, Agnes Martin, which I appreciate the minimalist artists. So I'm going to just go through the grad works real quick. So I went to grad school at Claremont Graduate School. Prior to going to grad school, I was actually a painter. So I was doing paintings. So that's why I say here from image to space, because I was really creating images flat. And then I left as a sculptor. I kind of used the banal, basically the banal image or the banal object as a subversive act back when I was in grad school. So I was making paintings, and the paintings had images of me, my family, but I didn't really like, I didn't want to be perceived as this artist that was Filipino. Or Filipino American, or a woman, or any of these kinds of things that felt like I could be pigeonholed. At the time, there wasn't that many artists that were people of color. You don't see them in the galleries at all. Black brown, and I didn't want to be, because of my looks or my name or my ethnicity, um, not be part of the conversation because of who I was. So I started to utilize things, objects, things that are in our environment, um, as my language. These things, like this is supposed to be a twin bed, like it's a corner of a bed. Um, they function to me more as a universal language. We were asked in grad school to go to this place called Graeber Olive House, and we were asked to do an installation there. And so what I did was I created these olives that were oversized olives. I was thinking about um, production. I was thinking about commodity. I was thinking about consumerism. And so I made my own bottle of olives. And I think this is one of the first pieces that I started also bringing in some identity issues. It's called imported Spanish Queen olives, but instead of just what they usually have is like pimentos, it has pimentos and electric plugs. And why electric plugs? Because I was just thinking that everything always had to be bigger and better, more improved. And so it's nice to have a warm olive. So I, I also, when I show it, I started to work with how do I display these things? You'll see I did a wallpaper piece later on in this slides presentation, but I displayed it like this, like a kitchen. And there's a lot of Americana in what I do early on. This is a piece that's made out of paper mache. And all of this stuff is like, there was no YouTube back then. So I couldn't, it wasn't like, oh, how do I make that? You just have to figure it out. So I didn't know how to make olives. I just, I made this out of wax. I played with wax for the first time. I didn't really know how to sew that well, but I was like, okay, I can sew a little bit. I learned a little bit. So I was basically honing my craft. This is made out of plaster. And so at the time, the most important thing for me in grad school was to get across that the object needed to be clear in terms of what it was in order to communicate to the viewer. So I was really interested in replication. So this is an oversized soap dish. This is an oversized blinds made out of canvas. And I also started playing with scale back in grad school. And I think it has something to do really with my own physicality, because I'm not very tall. And I think it also, like Klaus Oldenburg, when you see something that's so ordinary and when it's made into this larger scale, it becomes something else. It communicates something else to you. There's a sense of humor in it too. So these are called, this is blinds, they're just layers of blinds. And then lastly, I'll just show this one image from grad school too. This is my family's home in Diamond Bar. And this is just like, I didn't know how to embroidery, but I wanted to make a patch. And the symbol of the patch to me is something that you go someplace, you visit, and you want to take something away with you, right? And so I was leaving home. So I just like having a patch, my mom's house on my shoulder. So this is the way that I exhibited the show. And I started to really be interested in the way I located objects in space, really way back then in grad school. So this is, kind of like how they work within the space. I want to move the body. I want the body to, I don't want the viewer to do this thing. I don't know how many artists are here, but to me, the biggest insult is to go into a gallery, to stand at the front of the doorway and just do the gallery pan, and then you can just walk out. I want the viewer to come in and have to actually move. So here's some graduate work. Here I start to really actually utilize appropriation, narrative, and paper. So, so I started to realize, maybe not even actually at the time, that I am actually creating narratives. So this is a small box of chocolate. So it's made out of Sculpey, but it's supposed to be like chocolate. All I could say is I was dating a lot, okay? And then this is a piece that's utilizing a found object. And I hadn't used a lot of found objects, a little bit. And I didn't really have any rules as to what I was doing, except that it had to be the carrier of meaning for me. And this is my father's belt. So my father was a very large man, and his belt was like very long. And I took it and I basically cut it in strips, and then I laid it out. And this is the title for this piece is called Long Lashes. This is called bop bag family. So they're miniaturized bop bags. So this is made out of vinyl, and I just stuffed it. So they don't actually function, but they, these issues, I don't know if you can tell, there's some dark issues that I deal with, but I'm kind of feel like I can never really do these issues without putting a spin to it, not consciously, that just makes it lighter for me to deal with. So this is Bop Bag Family, and there's 5 of us in the family. And then intermittently, I go in and did some pieces that were about my identity. I was asked to be in this exhibit at the Pacific Asia Museum. It was a show of Filipino, oh no, sorry, I was a Filipino representative, sorry. It was a show of craft, traditional women craft artists and contemporary women artists. Okay, maybe that's not a big deal for you guys at this time, but at the time I was like, what? You're just gonna then we had a meeting, and everybody that was there was like, there was like one Vietnamese woman artist, there was one Chinese American artist. Actually, I think there were 2 Chinese American women artists. There was one Korean artist, and then I was Filipino, and I was just like, what? This feels so like, like I was handpicked, and I felt really uncertain about whether or not I wanted to participate in this. And so in order to feel like I could, I created these sashes, like beauty contestant sashes for every one of the artists. So I was Filipina painter sculptor, and I utilized the materials that I thought that were also kind of not reminiscent, but part of the culture that these artists came from. The Korean sash got stolen, so we have no idea where the Korean sash is at this moment. They just took it out of the sleeve. And I was kind of really, I had to do something for me subversive in order for me to be able to be in this environment. And so it's Lee's Cleaners, which isn't a real cleaner, but that was the curator's last name. This piece, you'll see, I started to sew a lot. And this piece is an homage to my grandmother, who had a shop in the Philippines. She had a shop with seamstress and stuff, and she made our dresses and everything like that. And so this is half the size of a punching bag. So I made but it's also a tomato pin cushion. So I'm using references from the tomato pin cushion. We all know what that is. And a punching bag. So it's basically a punching bag pin cushion. And you cannot punch that, you're gonna get hurt. Anyhow, so that's like, my grandmother, my mother, They're matriarchs to me. They're really strong women, and that's an homage to my grandma. This is made out of paper, and I'll just zoom in here. That looks like donuts, I hope. Basically, it's called brace, and I made these fake donuts. I used to work at a donut shop when I was back in college, and I have a scoliosis issue, so that's my little bump of my scoliosis there. Yeah, so it's and I started to do these pieces. You'll see that are from top to bottom. This is basically paper towels, and I just rolled the paper towel over and over again until I got this really big hunkin' wheel, and it's super heavy, and it's called bland. And this has a lot to do with colorism and never feeling like, there's issues that surrounding my culture. I think they still exist about brown skin. And in my particular culture, fairer is better. And I just was thinking about how you can never feel clean enough when you have these issues about brown identity. This is an old piece, though. You'll see how I've transformed. My father was a big man, like I told you. This is made out of cartons, so there's milk cartons there, and I made a oversized paper bag. So the paper bag I made, and I filled it with these cartons. So you're starting to see me use just real objects and just kind of transforming them a bit. These are oversized paper bags again, but I made them have the illusion that they look like they're floating. It's called breath. Again, a little bit of psychology in my artwork. It's like when you can't breathe and maybe you use a balloon to breathe. And then I thought, wouldn't it be magical if that breath, if you tied it, then it would float. This is called Little People. I don't know if you guys are all into computer games, but back in the day, we had these things called Fisher-Price Little People. And that's what I used to play with. And so I made a brown version of me. It's made out of wood. It's actually head size. And the hair is sculpty. I always use, for the most part, I always use what's accessible. So this is made out of sculpty again, and then that's just fabric on top. And these are small miniaturized pillows that are stacked up. There's some more small pillows in this scene here. I made this really long bed, very long. You can't really sleep on it. So, anyway, so I sewed that thing. So 91, 2000, I started to do wall drawings, and I call this, I did this exhibition called Truth in Canada. And I had a real dry spell, and didn't make any work for a while. Don't be with people that don't support your art, okay? That's my thing, because then it stilts you. So just one little word. No. A friend of mine asked me why I wasn't making art anymore, and then I and then he just said, that's what you're here for. And I started to think about about that. And yeah, art for me is a real spiritual place. And I started to think about my faith. This is like a thing. This is called instructions. What you do when you go in, when you're a Catholic. My mom was the model for this. This is her hands. And I was going back to drawing. So this is just contour lines. And then I was thinking about, Jesus and the chia pet. So I made these chia seeds pack, and actually a priest really liked this. So I'm not sure if I was I wasn't trying to be um, controversial here. I think there's some beauty to this because there's a renewal and transformation. And then this is a superstition. There's a superstition in Filipino culture, a lot of superstition, and one of it is like, do not be around an elephant trunk that's down. It always has to be up. So I took this small little keychain that I had, and the trunk was down, and my mom was like, get rid of that thing. It's bad luck. So instead, I undid it, I sewed it so that it was up, and then I made a larger one too. And then I just want to show you, like in 1998, I made a performance, and it's the first and only performance I've ever done. I dressed up as a maid. That's me right there on the right. My friend was the auctioneer, and we basically were auctioning me off as a Filipino domestic worker. We gave these cards out, and the cards basically discussed the agencies in the Philippines that basically took people that were like, that had graduate degrees and stuff like that, but because at the time period, and maybe still, it might still be the day, didn't have opportunities, would become, domestic helpers and be sent all over the world. So she read my that I had an MFA, and she read my details and things like that, and I carried around a bunch of objects. So 2020, somebody asked me to be in this show, and this is all of the documentation from that show. So there's the dress that I wore. I had a barbell that I made out of Tide. And I just carried all these things onto the stage when I did that performance. I put a blank here because there's like it just changed. I did some wall drawing. This is graphite, and on the wall, graphite chalk, and just painted it on the wall. And you can see some of these images like joy and nice and fluffy. This comes from products. That's why I showed you that stuff early on, like spam and stuff. It's just part of my vocabulary. It's part of what I grew up with. I'm really interested in lowbrow, so I'm really interested in craft. I like Fluxus art movement, and kind of like breaking down the barriers of what is considered art. So more bag stuff. This is made out of paper. Lots of stuff in this exhibition that's about observation. This is a very small paper piece called teat, like milk. And the opposite wall was this little meat steak. This is an oversized envelope made out of paper. There's inside is wood. And this is, if you're familiar with Yves Klein, he did a performance where he was jumping off a building. And I started to use Shrinky Dinks, again, something really familiar and really something you could just buy at the store. This is Shrinky Dinks too. I'll just stop on this for a little while because it's really significant. When I made this piece, I was afraid actually when I made this piece because it was so kind of strong for me, because most of the things that I was making, even if it was something that was maybe difficult, I wasn't so like obvious with it. And when I made this piece, this was talking about the color brown and variations of associations to the color brown. So I was thinking, well, what is brown? It's dirt, it's chocolate, it's shit, it's tree, and it's also Filipino. So there's these positive things about the color, but there's also negative things about the color. And I thought that was the complex thing about color. In 2006, I got asked to do a show, and I started to use this iconography, which is the pink box. And I think I was also trying to stretch my sculpture so that there was some form of abstraction to it. So this was called road, but it doesn't really look like a road. It's just like parts of a road. And this is made out of foam. And then I tried to create this trompe l'oeil. This is an abstraction of a stop sign, right? But then it's green. And this is made out of um, chalk pastel. And this is a very long cord. So if you remember the donut piece, it goes right back to that length. And it's an extension cord, familiar extension cord that's made out of paper again, that goes from the top and the bottom. And then some more scale shifting of a small tissue box. And I was doing wall drawings again. I did a piece like this. This is my first time using spray paint and stenciling. And then I got into doing stuff about paper. So ruled line paper became part of my vocabulary. I made this piece called Flag. I made this piece. You'll recognize this. This piece was done in 2010, but this was a really beautiful image for me. And then later on, I used it as a way for my sculpture that you'll see later on. All of these are blank. All of these have no writing on it. The show is called Omitted. And it was a little bit about how I felt like there was no representations of me in the world, and the people from my country. My father and mother worked in the LA Times, and so I used also the newspaper, because they worked in the LA Times, but there's no language here. There's no images. We were omitted. There's no stories about us. This is a book that I had made. All that's in here are blank pages except for the title page, the end page, and a dedication page. And all of these are streets that we lived in, and neighborhoods that we lived in throughout my life. So there's a lot of story, but there's no language to it. Part of it is my absence of language as a young kid too. All right, I'm gonna go really fast. I just stop here to just say that I got a grant because I got a COLA award, and it was the first time I was working with a fabricator. So this piece here was fabricated by somebody, and it was really a challenge for me to work with a fabricator. I make everything because I like to be in control. And when you're working with a fabricator, no matter what, you give them instructions, it's gonna have their stink on it, good or bad. If you like their stink, it's great. And the thing about that is that there's something about it that I always want to change. And so I like him and I still work with him, but I have to when I work with him, I change it after he helps me, because I'm not a good woodworker, so I needed him to help me on this. I made that ball on the left side. That's all made out of found Hawaiian shirts. This is a show called This Must Be the Place, from the Talking Heads song. And I'm playing around here with perspective. So if you could see here, the table is a found table, but the objects that I made are like shifted. And when you walk into the room, you're just like, wait, what? And it was really kind of fun. And I'm still really interested in doing this. I feel like I was making still lifes, and I'm really interested in going back to this work. This is also, see, it's off skewed. And my first beginnings of working with perspective, but I'm always working with space. See, this is flat on the wall, but it looks like it has depth. The pink box again, you'll start to see these recurring things. The newspaper, because of my parents. And then the reemergence of big. So I stopped doing big things for a while, because where am I gonna put them if nobody buys them? So, but then I made this, person asked me to be in this show, and the show was about, a little bit about identity. And so I went back to the hot dog sandwich. You know, when we go back to that, like the potted meat and the spam, here's my mom's version of lunch. And I was so embarrassed when I brought that sandwich to school and there's two little hot dogs sticking out and everybody's like, what the hell are you eating? Anyway, so here's my large, this is made out of felt. It's all felt. I made a breakthrough when I went to an artist residency in, artist residencies are the greatest thing. Once you graduate from, if you're an artist and you graduate from art school, and if you feel like you're not like, you know, hey, I don't feel like I have my community anymore, go to an artist residency. I went to Yaddo and that was amazing. And then I went to this place, which is the Joshua Tree Artist Residency, and I had a ball. I just explored, I had a great time, and I made a breakthrough. And I did this piece made out of cardboard. I was stimulated by the environment. Out in the desert, you've got all this beautiful Joshua Tree landscape and this super Walmart, and you go to the Walmart and you're just like, what the hell? I mean, just, it was so big, and I just couldn't like get it out of my mind that there was this kind of warehouse there, and it really influenced what I made. And so I created this, and it started me to do these kind of box pieces. This is called Asian box. I love this piece. A lot of people don't really think much of this piece, but I love this piece because there's only two things I did. I cut the box and then I flipped it over with the little brown part, and I added that section. And I just think it's brilliant, but nobody else does. Anyway. This is a gun piece. It's my protest to guns. It's called Happiness is a Warm Gun. I'm made out of felt again. All right. I'm starting to wrap this up. I hope you guys are okay. Is this too much? Okay, so this is circa 2016, all right? This is post, you know what happened in 2016, okay? Why are we voting now? Okay, so 2016 came. I was also about to have a sabbatical from school, and I was reading a lot. And I read all of these books, and it really influenced this body of work. I came back to the crayon again. So that brown crayon that was done back in, I think that was 2005, I came back to the crayon, and instead of seeing the crayon as a negative, I saw it as a powerful symbol for me embracing my brown nature and also being an American. And I just, because of post-Trumpian world, it was like, yeah, I'm American, and I'm also this. And I was also kind of engaging in the fact that we have been supported by Black Americans. And so this is called lean in. So here we're leaning into the strength of the Black American community, the Mexican American or brown community, the African, the Native American community, and the Asian community. And I make these drawings now sometimes to kind of get me in thinking about sculpture. So yeah, I made this boat drawing, and then it was like, hey, that would be really cool to make a big one. So sometimes my drawing informs that. This show is called Red, White, and Brown. I made this, again, the recurring image of the paper came back, and I made a flag drawing. I made an enlarged piece of paper, and I wrote benevolent assimilation all over it, and then I crushed it. This is a wall drawing. So these are temporary. All my wall drawings are temporary. They'll never be seen again. I like this idea of temporariness. I like the idea of not holding on to it. it just disappears after the show is done. And then here's a piece called Terrace. It comes back to my boxes, and I was really, you guys are in San Francisco, so I went to this show at the Asian American, no, the Asian, what is that place called over there in San Francisco?
The art museum.
The Asian Art Museum. I went there actually to explore Japanese shodo and calligraphy, but instead I also wanted to go see this show called Philippine Art. It's indigenous art from the indigenous period till now, and I was blown away by it. And I ended up, instead of studying Japanese art, I was studying Filipino culture, and it really made an impact on me. So I did this show called Red, White, and Brown. And I was really kind of exploring my identity and my associations to that. It's always a hybrid, because I really was raised here almost my entire life. My associations to it is, as a Filipino American, we grew up with Calrose rice. So I kind of love the bags of Calrose rice. So I made my own bags, but instead it's called Cal Lotus, a little nod to Buddhism. And then also I made this out of paper, and the bottom here is made out of cardboard with spray paint. So I use stencil. So you can see I start using these materials and things ongoing throughout my career. Here's another box. This is called Isla. I was starting to do these islands, and then, as a person who's lived in the United States almost all my life, when I'm looking at an island or from where I'm from, it's really idealistic. It's not like I live there, right? And so I started to see that, I'm just being idealistic about this. There's a lot of trouble in these places too. For instance, pollution. And so this is my version of paradise, but also the trouble with paradise. Those are really real pieces of trash, but I made that little tire there. That's fake tire for scale. The pink box has just become a thing for me, because when I was growing up, there weren't a lot of pastries that were Filipino around. It was the Chinese bakery and the Chinese market that had siopao and things like that were like, yay, it's something Asian. And so I love that. And I went to Japan, so I'm kind of shifting here also with the elegance of the stupa that I saw in Japan. All right, we're here, 2020. History. History now is what's kind of propelling a lot of my work. This is the show at the Orange County Museum of Art right now, and you guys are not going to see it because you're all up north. This is the second version of that study chalkboard piece. Now the water is very tumultuous. It's made out of chalk. Basically, I paint the wall with chalkboard paint, and then I use references from water, and I just draw it. I love B.S. Selman's, and I love doing these drawings. They're just so fun to do, and I just really find that I'm just having to be present with the drawing, because you can go too far or something. Sometimes it's just too much. So the chalk is like miniature. This is like 2 feet by 4 feet, and it's at a very low level, so it looks like it's short. There's that terrace piece again, and then I have 2 crayons now. This is a Kayumangi crayon. So it's a replica of the other crayon, but this time it's darker, and it's just embracing brown. And this is kapwa again, but it's re-envisioned. And this time I made some kapwa boxes These are called box seats. You can actually sit on them. And this is the installation in Orange County with the other sculptures that you saw. Playing around with perspective, flat, and then this installation is called Territorial Pissings. You'll see, remember that flag drawing I did? It's made now as a actual flag. I made a wallpaper. All the images in the wallpaper are taken from a book called The Forbidden Book. Basically, it's derogatory images of Filipinos when during the time of imperialism in American history, where they were trying to use propaganda to change the minds of anti-imperialists. And I use this imagery, it's quite disturbing, in a wallpaper pattern to look like kind of like an old-fashioned place. I also had molding made. There's books that are surrounded in this installation that say things like material resources or exotic or history, limited edition, because there's a lot of missing history that we've been taught. I know that I've been taught. You have to remember, I went to school in the 70s, and you guys are really lucky to have all this kind of different types of history being revealed to you. I didn't have any idea about my history when I was growing up. I was probably merely a paragraph in my college and high school art history time. And so you grow up really not knowing. You really grow up kind of not really knowing who you are too. And so I have just been recently learning a lot about it. It's affected me a lot. I made this mouse hole that's in the space. There's a painting, a tiny painting next to it. In the White House, there's a Theodore Roosevelt painting. And I took a cartoon from that book and I made a tiny version of the Theodore Roosevelt painting from the White House. If you can see, there's a rat in the hole. I drew a rat inside there. And these rats occupy these chairs, basically, in my mind. So that's the whole installation. It's called Territorial Pissings, but the wall, the wallpaper is called If These Walls Could Talk. And that's the end there for this. So I wanted to ask you guys a question. I hope that wasn't too much.
No, it's not too much, Maryrose. Thank you so much for sharing like about your work, and I'm always excited to hear you talk about it, and again the narratives that they come with, because it's so like contextual too. Like, you know, like in your story about like bringing the lunch like to school. But yeah, go ahead and ask your question.
Yeah, so I'm hoping that just looking at how I do stuff, and that you recognize that there's associations for you with objects. So I wanted to ask if you guys could just tell me and think about what object or material that you feel connected to, and can you imagine using in any artwork? So what object or material you feel connected to that you could imagine using in an artwork? Do I need to write that down, or is that cool? So I was hoping you guys could just go around and just kind of think about it, and if anybody is ready, you could just share it.
Yeah, like the question is what kind of material. Casey, you want to go ahead and start it off?
Okay, so like I notice a lot of your pieces are like reminiscent of childhood memories for sure, or like childhood, like I forgot what it's called, but it's like the one that pops right back up and down.
Oh, the
But yeah, but like I remember making these as a kid, you know, like perler beads, and you would iron them down, and like you can make 3D designs if you really wanted to, like puzzle pieces.
Neat.
So I was thinking, yeah, I do have class. Yeah, so I was thinking maybe if I bought more of these, I could make like cool little sculptures like yours, like
So
how you said.
is that like a toy that you used to play with when you were young? Like the material is like a toy?
This, I think the beads were more of the toy for me. Like, I don't know, I didn't play with these. It was more like the act of making it was more fun.
Yeah, I think that's great because your connections to that, making that thing, is not only your connection to making that, but it's also that time period.
Yeah.
Yeah, awesome.
Anybody else want to share? Rachel, you have anything to share?
I guess for me, like, I mean, in my project right now too, I'm using thread and I'm like threading it through paper. So like I found that to be like an interesting mix, and like having to pierce like through the paper, and I feel like the materiality of it is just very different, and the way I'm using it as well, it's just different from how I would usually think of using thread. So I feel like I could see myself trying to explore the different ways I could probably use thread as well, because right now I was trying, like during quarantine stuff, I tried to start like learning how to embroider and things like that, but like it's very difficult. So I like usually I would watch like these tutorials and then I would go off and try to do something on my own because I wouldn't really get it. So it's just exploring that medium a little bit more and like trying to see how I can put my own spin on it would be interesting for me as a future project.
Oh, I like that. I feel like sewing is like drawing. And so I like that you're associating the line of the thread like the line of drawing. And I also think that I encourage you, to explore embroidery or any kinds of stitching. I don't know how to do that stuff either. And you just get better at it. The first time it's not so great, but then the second time it gets better and better. So I wasn't like, I just got better and faster as I kept working. But definitely I used to call myself a fixer because I would do something, it'd break, and then I'd have to do it again. And I just like, that's part of my process. I'm going to make something. It's probably going to be the prototype for what I end up doing. But yeah, cool. Thank you, Rachel.
Yeah, one thing I want to say to that a little bit to Maryrose is that, like, especially nowadays, because of circumstances, it's also like thinking about what's easily accessible, or at least for the most part, right? Because before it felt like, I mean, I think now places are like opening up a little bit, but also I'm just also thinking in kind of like a way of like creating without necessarily having to be like, a consumer, like that's always kind of like in kind of having to buy everything, which is like not bad, but I'm also kind of just thinking about how people can work with material that is they can acquire without having to purchase.
Yeah, well, I kind of did it as a result of my feelings about the art world, and that has continued since grad school. It's just not wanting to be part of this system that glorifies the higher arts of painting and sculpture being made out of bronze and all of that. And that last piece had bronze chairs, and I'm not saying that I'll never use those kinds of high-end materials, but yeah, it's what you have. Like in grad school, I didn't have a lot of money. So it's like, what do I have around? What can I buy? Now that I got that opportunity, I was able to use bronze for the first time, but not just because I could, but because it was relevant to the piece. So, I think that there's a part of me that wants to make sure that the material is now also adding meaning to the piece.
Yeah, no, totally. That's very insightful. Thank you so much. Maybe we can ask one more. Let's see. Abby, any thoughts on material, or is Abby there?
I think they're all having lunch.
I feel like I don't know that I like necessarily personally relate to this topic. I feel like nothing comes to mind as of right now, but I do have like individual questions. Hopefully if we do like a Q&A.
Yeah, maybe we can move it just to be conscious of Mary Rose time. Do you mind, Mary Rose, if we just kind of ask questions?
Not at all.
Yeah. Maybe Abby, do you want to ask the question since you're on it?
Yeah, so I had like one particular question about your bed and the donut piece that was sort of like a resemblance of you working at the donut shop along with how you sort of developed like scoliosis. I was just curious, like what sort of enticed you to make both of those pieces or any of your work like primarily elongated? Like is there any purpose or reason by that or reason behind it? Like just because they're such tall, like extravagant, elongated pieces, is there anything behind that, or was it just like fascinating to make it look that way to you?
Um, well, I I have a lot of questions about sorry. It's basically heaven and hell. It's just, or I'm just, I am, I have a lot of questions about spirituality. So I'm always kind of thinking about that, about my own. I question it. I think about here and somewhere. So I think that's what that is. And um, I don't think it has to be apparent to anybody. So that's why it's kind of like hard for me to talk about it. But it is just like an ongoing thing for me. Does that seem strange to you, Abby?
No, that's a great answer. I didn't really particularly like seek to expect a certain response, but that was really unique. So thank you.
Okay, thanks.
I also love how it acknowledges the dimension to Mary Rose, right? Like I feel like just because sometimes that kind of space, depending on what the space is, like it kind of connects it. It
Yeah.
connects the floor to the ceiling. I think that really creates a shift in the space.
Yeah, I'm really interested in how you, again, like how the body moves. And so the body has to experience this by looking up and down and also walking around. That actually that the extension cord piece is made with a powdered chalk. And so if you get too close, you could get some on your shirt, and just like, got to be careful. I don't know.
Yeah. Any other questions for Mary Rose that you have that might not be mentioned? I know, like, have some questions or just from your own work. Adolfo, were you gonna ask a question?
Yeah, I was wondering, have you translated this to different, like the crayon one really spoke out to me, because that one could be easily translated or copied by many other artists. And I think Champoy has talked about how there's like originality and how it's a very Western concept. And I think it would be a powerful thing to be translated to like Spanish, because I know there are a lot of sentiments that are similar that parallel like Filipino culture as well.
I'm not really sure what the question is, Adolfo. Could you ask the
Oh,
question?
it wasn't really a question. It was like, have you? Well, no, my question was, have you had other artists copy this or like had this translated into a different language, like
Um,
Spanish, for example?
you know, it is a real thing about, like, how ownership, what do you own? And I do think that I've seen another artist use crayons, and I don't know if he's ever seen my crayons. How would I know that? And it's a universal thing, crayons, right? So I think that I just hope that what I'm doing with my work is really not unique but specific. That and I think that I've been doing this for a really long time. That like I just don't like grab a thing and just it becomes like part of my language. I really want to identify with that thing. So and if you could see, the reason why I did the progression is that it took me a while to really use and really know why I chose it. And so now I feel like if anybody uses a crayon, whatever, you know, use it. But I already have used it so many different ways, and I'm still continuing to do it, that I think I bring my own sensibility to that, you know? So, you know, if you did a crayon and you identified with it, you know, how would you do it to make it different than what I did? You know, I think that all you could do is just kind of maybe say and acknowledge that, hey, you know, this influenced me. I was influenced, like I said, by Andy Warhol. You know, I could not have done those Kapwa boxes without knowing of Andy Warhol. But I'm not going to just say, oh, I just did Kapwa boxes, I'm so original. I reference those Brillo boxes definitely, but I'm not just trying to make what he made. I'm trying to make something else with it. I think acknowledging the source is really important, um, and you know, and I really have to. I feel like I have to be careful because I did do a drawing that I didn't show you guys that appropriates tattoo techniques from the indigenous Filipino tribe. And I'm not from that tribe. I'm Filipino, but I'm not from that tribe. But I used it on my, not my body, but a drawing that looked like my body. And when I did it, I called it inappropriation because I wasn't sure I should have the right to do that, because those people that have those tattoos on their body, when they get it imprinted on their bodies, they get that because they have done something in their tribe and community that gives them that honor. And I don't have that honor. And so, but I wanted to say, I wanted to identify, I wanted to glorify. And so that's all I could do is kind of like do it and then kind of slightly apologize for doing it by calling it inappropriation.
No, that's a really great point that you're talking about, Maryrose, because I feel like that kind of comes up a lot, like these days too, right? Like especially like thinking of who is doing it, right? And how, like, what are the kind of works. My question relates a little bit to what Adolfo's original question was like, was there an object that you have used previously under like a specific like context, maybe like, you know, whatever at that time, and then throughout time that context might have shifted, or maybe like the weight of what like that object or how that object is identified in the like cultural like context or whatever context it's in has shifted, like, you know, in time. I'm just curious, does that make sense? Like you use like something and now it means not necessarily completely something else, but maybe
Well, yeah, definitely. I think like the crayon, for instance, right? That first time when I did the crayons, the small ones, that was shame, but it's transformed now to not having shame. And that's a result of the time period. It's a result of my own maturity and just knowing more about myself and my identity, that it's shifted. And it only came back because of the time period, because of Donald Trump. And after his election, I just felt like I didn't feel American again. After his election, all this time, after living here almost my entire life, I felt like, wait, I thought I was American. And I was just, you know, so I needed to stand up for that.
no,
And
that's no, I love that.
the donut came back because, you know, the donut is funny because it was the first time I ever used anything 3D. I don't have a picture of it. I'm trying to get access to it. But a long time ago when I was in undergrad, I did a painting because I used to be a painter. And it was a frame of donuts. made out of paper mache. And it was like, and I think back and I'm like, that's when I started doing 3D, back in undergraduate school, and it didn't come back until grad school. So you just never know. You guys, you never know the threads. You know, you make something now, you don't know how it informs you later. And it might be something that you don't think is that amazing, but then even now you can look back at your work, right, and just go, oh yeah, that's still important to me. I think that I just would like to say, I'll put my teacher hat on. I just feel like don't rush your language. It's gonna come to you. Don't force your language. There's too much emphasis on now, and as part of art to me is what it gives you as to be a human, how it informs your humanness. Let it learn from making, learn from the making, not just to make it so that you can show it. That's a real bad thing about art school. It's not all about just being in shows. It's about what it gives you. When you lose that, you don't want to make it anymore. So connect to why you make it.
Yeah, that's a very beautiful advice, Maryrose. I really appreciate that. And again, just I really appreciate you coming and like sharing all the things that you shared with us. And it's always exciting. We even get a sneak peek of your current show that's on right now. I was like, well, like that's great. We get to see it as if we even get a special private showing. Yeah, I was just gonna ask anybody any last things you want to ask Maryrose or just say before we kind of wrap up, just to be conscious of her time.
I do. Not a question, but just like a comment. Because I am Filipino as well, and I feel like I was able to connect even deeper to like some of the pieces that you mentioned, like especially the superstition of having elephant trunks that are down in your household. Like even in my dorm or my apartment, my college apartment, I have an elephant that the trunk is up and like facing towards the door, like that my mom set up before she left, like when she was helping me move in. And I think that just like, because it's rare to see other people, like other artists, the same cultural background as me. So I think it's just like, it's really nice to like be able to experience it.
Oh, I'm glad. Thank you. Thanks for sharing.
And yeah, I don't know if Maryrose, you're open to like also like sharing if people want to get a hold of you for whatever reason, or I don't know, but
You could email me at my PCC address. I can give it to you, Champoy.
I can, yeah, definitely. But again, thank you so much for being here, and I really, really, really appreciate you. Like, like I'm always like trying to like talk about your work too, and I think like I think it's important that people know about it, and how much how much it needs to be out there more.
Oh, thank you. Thanks, you guys. Thanks for inviting me, and nice to meet you all. Good luck.
We'll talk soon. Bye. Okay, so it's currently 3:20. And again, this is more just because I know like next week is going to be the our crit